I've seen companies lose major clients over things that they didn't even know they were supposed to do, and it almost always could have been prevented. But by then it's too late to fix anything quietly. There is a smarter way how to handle this, and it's called a mock assessment. A mock assessment is how you close that gap before it costs you a client, a contract, or your reputation. I'm Hendrik Mosel, like the river or the wine. I'm a certified social auditor and I've spent the last 10 years auditing companies across more than 25 different countries. I'm based in Germany and we have teams across Europe, the US and Asia. At QinSpec, we have a very simple principle. Be certain. Because in the field, uncertainty is where the problems really begin. Today we're focusing on mock assessments, the audit before the audit, the step most companies skip and later regret. By the end of this video, you'll understand what a mock assessment really involves, what it reveals, and why it can completely change the outcome of your actual external third-party audit. I've been conducting social compliance audits for a decade now, and I can tell you, the difference between prepared and unprepared facilities is obvious to the trained eye within the first hour, 30 minutes even. What is a mock assessment? Let's start simple. A mock assessment is a full simulation of a social compliance audit before the actual official third-party audit takes place. This means the structure, the same. Opening meeting, factory walkthrough, document review, worker interviews, management interviews, closing meeting, done. Same topics. Labor, sometimes referred to as the HR part. Ethics, health and safety, environment, supply chain management. The only difference is this. There are no negative consequences, no official report, no client seeing the results, no corrective action plan to be submitted within a certain deadline to the client. That changes everything. Because if it's not about avoiding negative consequences, not just what looks good on paper to create a nice report that can be presented to clients, but if it's really about identifying true improvement potential to truly see where you stand, people are more willing to show what's actually going on behind the scenes. Have you ever done a mock assessment before an audit? Did it help? How? What's to improve? Let me know in the comments. So what does this actually do for you? Let's go over the main benefits. First benefit, you see the problems. Here's the biggest benefit of a mock assessment. You see your own gaps before the external auditor does. Because every facility has blind spots. Not necessarily because of bad intent, but because people are too close to their own systems. And when a trained auditor walks in, they see these things immediately. Simple things like expired fire extinguishers, missing exit signage, inconsistent payroll versus working hours, incomplete worker files. Individually, these don't seem critical, but together they tell a story. And good auditors pick up on that very quickly. A mock assessment lets you see that story first, and more importantly, fix it before it becomes official. And here's something that most companies underestimate. Benefit 2. You finally understand the standard. Most companies think they understand the audit standards like RBA or SMETA. They read them, they prepare documents, they check boxes, but they misunderstand how the standards are actually applied. Audit frameworks are written in principles, not in real-world scenarios. The wording always must be translated and interpreted. If you're not trained properly on how to do that, you really have no chance to get it right. It begins with the scope of the assessment. Which part of the total workforce is actually in scope of the assessment? Blue-collar staff only or administration as well? What about any indirectly hired workers, labor agency workers? What about on-site service providers, the cleaning company who sends people every day, or the security company managing access to your facility? How about the external warehouse you have 10 kilometers away from the main site? All of this is so important to understand. Let me give you another specific example. A requirement might say, workers must be able to raise concerns without fear. Sounds very simple. But an auditor won't just check if you have a policy on that. They will check if it is a documented policy, if and how it was communicated to the workforce. They will ask workers privately. Check if they know the system, what to do if they have a concern, if they feel comfortable doing so, if they ever used it. How were these concerns addressed in the end? Were these issues solved properly? If you have a system for complaints but the workers don't know it exists, you fail that requirement. Also, if there is no anonymous way to report grievances from most programs, this requirement is then not fulfilled. This is a finding, a non-conformance, a non-compliance. So even if the policy is perfect on paper, effective implementation is key. This is what is so difficult, to apply the audit standard, which is usually used on a global scale, to the actual reality of the company. This is where a mock assessment becomes extremely valuable. Because you're not just getting a list of findings, you're getting interpretation help from someone who applies the standard in real situations in the country you operate in. That changes how you prepare going forward, I can tell you that. If this is useful, like, subscribe and share. It helps to reach people who are actually interested in this topic. Now let's talk about where many social audits are actually won or lost. The documents. Benefit 3. Your documents get stress tested. Every audit comes down to documentation. And this is where a lot of companies struggle. Not necessarily because documents don't exist. That is often also a factor, but more because nobody has ever had to produce them under pressure. A company, many thousands of workers, many thousands of documents, but your task is now to show the auditors where that one requirement he's asking for is actually written down. And which document was that again? Or was it documented, or was it just a verbal policy? Was it in the handbook? How was that document called? You need to find it now. Can you? A mock assessment tests 3 things here. What's missing, records not kept, incomplete or outdated. What doesn't match, payroll versus attendance, overtime versus legal limits, and how fast you can retrieve it. And this part matters more than most people think, because speed shows control. The time a social auditor spends on-site is really limited. Many programs have been expanding the number of requirements, but not the time spent on-site, or they have been reducing the time spent on-site. That's a major challenge. And it is the company's responsibility to show to the auditors that they comply, not vice versa. If it takes you 45 minutes to find a document during an audit, that's already a big problem. You'll not be able to catch everything. Whatever's not seen during the audit cannot be accepted. All of those points will automatically be findings, even if you have the system in place. You cannot send it the week after or 2 weeks after. Not accepted. A mock assessment trains your team to respond quickly and confidently. Now here's the part that creates a big risk and is the least prepared. Benefit 4. Worker interviews. Worker interviews are where many audits fall apart, because workers are unprepared, unsure, sometimes nervous, and that leads to inconsistent answers. Inconsistent answers may create findings. A mock assessment changes that. Workers understand what's being asked, why it's being asked, that it's confidential. They can speak openly. There will not be any negative consequences for them. And something else happens, something important. Sometimes, if put in this position, workers speak out for the first time. They talk about issues like forced overtime, unclear wages, missing communication. During the actual audit, that's a problem. During the mock assessment, that's not a problem. That's an opportunity before it becomes a problem. Benefit 5. No more surprises. Another major advantage. Nobody is surprised on audit day. Because without preparation, audits can feel chaotic. A lot of time is lost organizing different aspects of the assessment. Managers don't expect the full scope, full facility walkthroughs, private interviews, system testing and so on. And that leads to a lot of stress and sometimes panic. And panic leads to unnecessary mistakes. A mock assessment removes that. Your team knows what happens, when it happens, how to respond, because they lived through the process. And that confidence is very visible to an external auditor. Benefit 6. Time to fix things. This might be the most important benefit of all. Time. After a real assessment, findings are official, deadlines start, orders may be put on hold or stopped completely. Your company might be blacklisted until these issues are fixed. Your clients will apply pressure. After a mock assessment, nothing is official yet, which means you can fix the gaps properly, verify corrections, document everything before anyone else external sees it. That puts you in a completely different position to improve the systems for your staff, but also protect your financial interests and your reputation. So in simple terms, a mock assessment lets you see your gaps early, understand the standard properly, test your systems under pressure, prepare your workers and managers, and fix problems before they become official. It's not about passing an audit, it's about not being surprised by it and being run over by it. If you're preparing for an upcoming audit, consider mock assessments as an effective tool to prepare effectively and efficiently. If you want our team's help, reach out to us. Glad to discuss how we can best serve you. If this video helped you, share it with your team and your suppliers. This is exactly the kind of thing people need to see before the audit, not after. Companies often don't realize it before the assessment, only after. And then it's too late. And if you've got any questions about mock assessments or social audits, send them to us. See you in the next one.